Hello again, everybody. It's Mr. Scott here today with another episode of Metal 40 Plus, where we celebrate metal albums that turn 40 years old in the year 2024, essentially metal albums that become middle-aged. And I welcome them into this time of their lives. And today, the episode is all about Judas Priest and their album, Defenders of the Faith. We'll be talking about the album, the songs in the album, and the band in context of the time the album came out. Plus, we'll be getting into other information about the band, too. We're also going to be checking out a song as I give you this information. The song will be Free Will Burning, a live version of the song, a big hit off this album. The link to it will be down in the description, along with all kinds of information about me. And as always, we want to remind you that if you're a metal or hard rock gatekeeper, you can just go away. Okay? Yeah, it's cool. You clicked on here. You thought you were probably going to have a good time looking at me like, oh, I'm going to give this guy a lot of shit. No, you're not. You're not. Okay? Because I don't want to hear it. I don't need to hear it. And I don't care. Okay? So just get yourselves out of here.
Take care now. Bye-bye then.
So, there's the metal god himself. Let's check it out. Free Will Burning from Defenders of the Faith from Judas Priest. And Thrill Me. Oh, man. So good. So freaking good. My God. I got to break out the cheaters for this. Apologies. But let's start talking about Defenders of the Faith. This was the 9th studio album from Judas Priest, released January 13th, 1984. And some diehard fans of Judas Priest know this fact, but just in case you're not and you're kind of a novice with the group, they actually formed in 1969. They've been around for a very, very long time, probably longer than some people out there, not a lot of people, but some people might think. And when they started out, they had a whole different sound. And it took years for them to develop the sound that would eventually become a foundation of heavy metal. And the band themselves would become a force to be reckoned with in a genre of music known as the new wave of British heavy metal, with other bands like Iron Maiden, Motorhead, and many others. Now, this band was riding a high momentum at the time this album came out in 1984 because they had released two great albums. British Steel in 1980 with songs like Breaking the Law became iconic and associated with the band, and also Screaming for Vengeance in 1982 with songs like You Got Another Thing Coming, had a video to it that had a lot of airplay on MTV. And as I already kind of mentioned, a calling card of the band was the immortal guitar duo of Glenn Tipton and K.K. Downing. The album itself, relatively successful for a metal band at that time. It peaked at number 18 on the U.S. charts, but it broke the top 10 over in Finland and in Sweden. Let's get back into it. You notice, like, even with the guitar lead there, it's not overly flourished. Every note is important. Every note means something. No wasted motion. And that I have so much respect for bands like this that take that into account when they're putting their songs together. The song itself, as you can tell, not very difficult, very simplistic, but it just sounds so good, so solid. So let's talk about the songs off this album. This is just a quick overview of all the songs on here. Of course, I encourage you to check out the album on your own so you can get your own opinion about these things. The album starts off with this song here, Free Will Burning. It was the first single released off the album, and a great opener. It's exactly what you want a Judas Priest song to sound like, as you can tell. We go on to a song called Jawbreaker. Has a strong power metal vibe to it, especially with the melody and the vocal lines. And then we come to a song that I don't know why it never became a single, because I think a lot of people really enjoyed this one. I know I did. Rock Hard, Ride Free. Dynamics are utilized along with the same strong dual guitar work. There's some parts of the song that you might mistake for, I hate to say it, but a band like Dokken, because especially in the vocal harmonies, it just has that kind of sound to it. Or maybe Dokken took it from Judas Priest. I don't know, but it has that harmonization going on in the vocals that makes it really a strong standout track. It's definitely an underrated track, not really a hidden gem, because, like I said, I think a lot of fans really enjoyed this one. Then we have a classic, the Sentinel. Halford has more of an edge in his vocals with this one. Still a high up in the register, as we know, like that Rob Halford can do, the metal god himself, but a much more gruff delivery with his vocals. Then we get to another single, Love Bites. Not necessarily a power ballad, but it's not as explosive as the rest of the song. It's got a nice hook in the chorus, but it stands up nonetheless. Now we get to a controversial song, to say the least, and that is Eat Me Alive. Why is it controversial, you ask? I'm so glad you did, because this was a song that was included on the infamous PMRC's Filthy 15, a list of songs from various bands that they deemed to be sadomasochistic or satanic or something that they just did not like, and decided to lump them all together. I actually have a quote here from the band. In a uniquely British way, Rob's S&M lyrics were intended to be tongue-in-cheek and certainly not corrupting as Tipper Gore of the Parents Music Resource Center, the PMRC, took it to be. They included it with full knowledge, knowing that it would get a lot of media attention. Gee, why would a band trying to get name recognition and get their name out there do that? Little did they know that the time it was included in the Filthy 15, it would be a precursor to far more disturbing predicament for the band. And that's from K.K. Downing, who stated that. And of course, he's referring to the band being sued years later for supposedly encouraging someone to unalive themselves, as you have to say now on YouTube. It's so freaking stupid, but you know what it means. But nonetheless, Eat Me Alive included on the Filthy 15. But the PMRC didn't realize what they were doing. They didn't realize that that was actually going to help the bands more than anybody else. I mean, it came to be that the Parent Advisory explicit lyric sticker would start being put on albums after that. And what do you think it did? Jacked sales to the roof. So thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate that. You helped out metal, even though you didn't think you were. Back into the song listing here, because now things start to change when it comes to this album. The next track is called Some Heads Are Gonna Roll. Slower start, and it keeps that pace throughout the song. Then we have Night Comes Down. This is definitely a power ballad, but honestly, I don't think it stands out that much as far as in context of the album is concerned. Heavy Duty is up next. No, it's not a cover of the Spinal Tap song, although it might have been a better dealing of that. It does have a rallying vibe to it, like a simple drum beat that you can pump your fist to, which leads right into the title track of the album, Defenders of the Faith. And this actually ends the album. The album fades out with this song. And, it's... in my opinion, listening to the album, it's like the first half is so solid, and then the second half, things they go in a whole different direction, which we'll get into in a moment. Let's finish out the track here. So as I indicated, Defenders of the Faith, first half is definitely stronger than the second half, in my opinion. You can say that kind of side A continues the sound from the previous two albums I mentioned earlier, British Steel and Screaming for Vengeance, how those two kind of got heavier as it goes on. And this kind of like rides that same wave, but then the second half starts to take it in a whole different path, and it kind of foreshadows the sound that the band would be going for on their next release, if I dare say the word, Turbo. Now, I do that because Turbo is one of those albums that's very divisive amongst Priest fans. Some people like it, some people love it, some people can't stand it. Because the band started going different directions as far as like production is concerned. They started using like more guitar synthesizer sounds on it. And, I always feel that musicians, artists should be allowed to experiment. They should be allowed to grow. And, sometimes it's going to connect with their audience. Sometimes it's not. Look at Metallica, a perfect example right there. After the Black Album with the Load and Reload albums and Saint Anger, all that stuff there too. But, they would eventually come back to what they knew to do with Death Magnetic and Hardwired and 72 and so forth. So any band is allowed to have that kind of growth and take different directions. And that's fine with me. I got respect for that. Do I necessarily like it? Not really, but that's not for me to say. It's all in the ear of the beholder. But the bottom line is Judas Priest is still putting out new material to this very day, and their latest album, called Invincible Shield, just came out a month ago. And as a matter of fact, at the time of this recording, Judas Priest just played my hometown of Albany, New York, a couple of 5 days ago. And I had friends who went to that show. Said it was a kick-ass event. They loved it. Sounded great. You would never know, that the band is still going strong to this day. Over 50 years old. I mean, Judas Priest, it is a foundation of heavy metal. As I said earlier, they're a band that are legendary, have influenced so many other bands. And you've got bands like them, Iron Maiden, Merciful Fate, Scorpions, all utilizing that dual guitar attack. Just absolutely phenomenal. So, Defenders of the Faith from Judas Priest, welcome into your middle-age time. I hope you enjoyed this time to relax, chill out a little bit, make sure you don't strain your back. You know what I'm talking about. What did you think? Let me know in the comments. Like the video. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. This is part of a playlist here on my channel. I've already done 4 other episodes here. This is episode 5. And hey, next month in June, we're going to get twisted. So make sure you stay hungry. You know what I'm talking about. But that's next month. But I appreciate you guys stopping in here. Appreciate you all so much for clicking that subscribe button, liking the videos. And here I am recording and releasing this in May of 2024, which is my 5-year anniversary here on YouTube. So big shout out for all of you who throw the horns up there and never stop playing and show Mr. Scott all the support you can. You can support me more by going down in the description, finding out all my social networks, finding me on my TeePublic merch store, finding me on Twitch when I go live on there, and joining up with this channel, becoming an official member of the SMF crew. I thank you very much for stopping by, my friends. Keep those horns high, and just like Judas Priest has done for decades, never stop playing.
It's Mr. Scott. Yo, it's Mr. Scott. You know his ass is hot. Yo, it's Mr. Scott. It's Mr. Scott. Yo, it's Mr. Scott. You know his ass is hot. Yo, it's Mr. Scott. It's Mr. Scott.